So instead of going here and then jumping mambo jumbo, better is that you should be consolidating your resources, read newspaper.
So basic idea is whatever you have read, you should be able to comprehend that issue and make a small notes. And on daily basis, it will be good if you can revise it as well as practice some questions.
You must develop the aptitude of the UPSC is recruiting you as a civil servant. So they don't, if they only want to test your memory, then they will be recruiting someone at the group C or group B level. So here they are testing your understanding and how you will react to original situations.
Perfection is a disease. Have working order. Don't try to hit every ball. So now, if you enjoy it, you can recall in the examination hall. May not be each and every case, but when needed, trust me, your brain will help you to map it.
So, but I strongly suggest please go through only some authentic in a source of information here, because lot of challenges are there, and then information is there in the internet, and people find many of them to be attractive, but it may not be authentic.
Hello dear aspirants. Today we are going to talk about a very important aspect of the UPSC exam, which is the current affairs preparation. I'm sure all the aspirants preparing for the exam or thinking about the exam know how important current affairs are. And they also know that there's so many things available around you to prepare current affairs. We have so many different newspapers, there's so many magazines, websites, the internet is flooded with resources, all telling you to prepare current affairs. But how do you go about using them? What is important? How do you approach things? We are going to talk about all those aspects in detail today. We have a panel of faculties which will tell you about all aspects of current affairs preparation. We are going to start with Rajesh Sir, where he is going to first tell us why current affairs are important for the exam.
So, current affairs is considered to be one of the most important section of the UPSC preparation. So, to put it in a single line, I would like to say preparing UPSC without going through current affairs is like steering a ship without compass. You have all the tools required, but you don't have the direction to reach the destination. So, to understand the significance of current affairs, so we can go through the most important, so the source for this preparation, that is notification. If you see the syllabus inside the notification, in all the stages, it is very clearly mentioned the significance of current affairs. So, for example, in prelims, the GS part of prelims paper, the first topic itself says that current events of national and international significance. So, there itself it starts with current affairs. In mains, while discussing the nature of the questions which are going to be asked in the GS papers, so there it is very clearly mentioned what exactly UPSC is trying to test. So, there the awareness of the different subjects and the relevance of the understanding. So, these are the key pointers which says that a student has to go through the subject in the context of current affairs. And even in interview also. So, in the part of interview syllabus, like there is a part which describes the nature of the questions. So, there it is directly mentioned the interest in current affairs is one of the area where they are going to ask questions. So, it is very clear from the syllabus itself, and as well as if you go through the previous year's questions. So, every stage, the prelims at least 20 to 30% of the questions are going to be from current affairs, and in GS 1, 2, 3 as well as 4. So, particularly GS 2 and GS 3, so most of the questions are either directly related to current affairs or inspired from current affairs. So that itself says that the current affairs is the most important part of preparation.
Definitely. Even if, for me especially, even if they've not asked something, you can definitely add that if you know what's going on, right? That's how you show that, okay, you know what's going around.
It makes the answers more relevant.
More relevant, exactly. So, we'll guide our aspirants to prepare current affairs. Sunil Sir, if you can just start off with telling what are the sources which aspirants would be using to prepare current affairs.
In fact, that's what the point is, because when it comes to current affairs, there are several sources. Needless to say, we are on an information highway, and you just click on Google and you get 1001 links. So, consolidation is very important. The first thing first. And in fact, I would like to say there's a famous rule in management called Pareto rule.
Yeah.
that says ki most of the time 80% things govern 20% of the content. Same here also. That 20% of the things are relevant for you, specifically speaking. So instead of going here and then jumping mambo jumbo, better is that you should be consolidating your resources. Read newspaper. I often say not reading newspaper is one of the most technical flaw one can think of in this examination. So read newspaper, particularly while reading newspaper, you should be knowing your syllabus first. That not everything in the newspaper is of that significance. You should be knowing syllabus, that what to read in newspaper, how to read, but do read newspaper. Not reading newspaper is a mistake. In newspaper, like most of the newspapers are coming with one thing wonderful these days called explained section. And it's not surprising that most of the questions do fall there. So while reading newspaper, read newspaper thoroughly, understand the explained sections. In fact, highly advisable, take cuttings of those explained sections, or you can take a note on it. Besides, second mistake one students can do is that they are going too much on internet. So I'll say confine your digital resources to official websites. What PIB is saying, don't just read anyone, any Tom, Dick and Harry writing on Google, because authenticity of the resource is equally important, if not more. So go with PIB, go with RBI website, go with, now most of the things are available on the websites if you want to go that way. And at the same time, you should be referring to the standard magazines. Like, don't underestimate those magazines like Kurukshetra, Yojana. Kurukshetra, I can say, might not be of that significance because it is confining largely to the rural development, but Yojana is definitely one thing which you should not be skipping. So read newspaper, read Yojana. If you want to go digital, perfectly all right. But make sure that you are only going with authentic resources. So for example, in economics, there's one wonderful thing by IMF called Back to Basics, which explains almost every terms and terminology in just a layman's term. Similarly, RBI says almost everything on its website. If you go, say, environmental news, almost everything is available on, UNEP programs. So if you go digital, use PIB resources, use official links, and once you are doing it, don't try to mug up everything. There's another mistake one can do, that they're trying to mug up everything. You can't. Technically, nobody can. So read them, enjoy them. One thing which you should consider in the newspaper is that there is one thing called in media hard news, soft news. Hard news is that news which is coming as front line, people are talking about it. Soft news is that news which is there in the newspaper almost every day, maybe of significance, and that you can map with your syllabus. So don't go too much into the political news unnecessary. You should be understanding the relevance of that news, that why this news is, and what could be relevant from the examination point of view. So that is what you should be confining to. And then once you have done all these things, as I told you, that don't try to mug it up, just make it as a habit. And then you should come to, let's say, consolidated resources, confined resources like Vision is having its own what is called Vision 365. Even we have daily podcasts, we have weekly focuses where you can talk about whatever the main weekly things are. Because now what will happen, what you have read in newspaper, you will see the same thing is coming. So it's a good revision also, and it also will give you insight that what to read further from the newspaper. So we have daily podcasts. It's very user friendly. We have what is called weekly focuses that you can refer to, and then we have PD 65, Mains
Monthly
365,
magazine also.
monthly magazines. In fact, Mains 365, I must say, it's a quite handy thing, because before every topic there is one synopsis given, which is very useful for last moment revision. So monthly 365 you can do. And one more thing I would like to say, we are now coming up with what is called our Digital Current Affairs 2.0, where we are having our own generative AI. We are calling it Vision Intelligence. So what you can do, let's say you have read anything. We are having highlights there. So you read anything. Now you can do one thing. You can ask your tailor-made questions to the Vision Intelligence, and they will give you first a crisp answer, keeping the UPSC model answers in mind. And besides, also will provide you link that what could be further read. So this way, you should be making two layers. First, read newspaper, read official resources, Yojana, Kurukshetra, etc., and then go with what is called monthly magazine and PD 65, Mains 65, along with this digital version of it. That is how you should be confining your resources instead of going mumbo jumbo.
Sir, I think this is a very, very good explanation of sources, because we have to do it in two layers, right? Because the first layer, like you said, the newspaper, that's going to be for an overall understanding. And I really liked how you said that, okay, this has to be enjoyed, right? Because otherwise the aspirants really take it as a tedious task. And then the learning can come a little later from those Vision monthly
Consolidated
magazines
resources,
and
yes,
consolidated resources, right? Now, the sources are there, we have content available, but current affairs is something which aspirants find very difficult to do. So, Amil Sir, if you can just highlight what are the challenges which aspirants face in preparation of current affairs.
Regarding challenges, I feel that we have multiple sources, and primarily students rely upon Indian Express and the Hindu. They both have their own what you call history, and if you see Hindu, it is more of an academic paper. The pertinent part of it is Hindu never exaggerates the news, so it keeps it very precise and academic. Although Indian Express last 15 years or at least 14 years, it has also oriented itself and it caters to the demand of UPSC. It purely depends upon an inclination. So first thing which I of course feel is that there is variety of information, and we live in an era of democratization of knowledge. That also comes with a challenge how to balance the same. So first thing is that of course this debate between Hindu and Indian Express, which I often get in the class also, which I feel is not, it depends upon an aptitude, and one has to be what both of them are equally good. Okay. So first, I think one newspaper is enough. One thing is there, you may be in touch with someone who is reading the second. If some good article, for example, if they're tracing delimitation, or if they're tracing the right Article 21, right to life, or if they're tracing the evolution of any such thing, which is parliamentary democracy or privileges in India. So that one newspaper, one, not more than one. Second, you can see if there is a good article. Second, internet. Internet is something which is a double-edged sword. So internet, on the one hand, it provides you a direct access, which for us as a teacher, also as a scholar, when we were in colleges, this was not so accessible, which is so good. So primary sources, I think, are really, really good. But at the same time, it is very easy to use the terms like primary sources, demand of the examination. But the students who is a naive scholar, he is not. For example, most of the laws, you can go through the functions and the composition and such thing. So laws may two things. One, for example, there is a Lokpal and Lokayukt Act. So in the prelim stage of the examination, UPSC may ask the composition and the function and a brief insight. But in the mains stage of the examination, paper 4, ethics, integrity and aptitude, as well as of course in paper 2, they may ask the role of Lokpal in ensuring probity in India, or see very less number of convictions have actually happened. So when you read, first thing is that newspaper, one newspaper. Second thing is internet, you have to be very, very precise, because too much information is flowing. Vision IS comes with its own. So if you are daily analysis that comes, I think that is enough. Primary sources should be referred to. I can give zillions of examples. They asked the question from Bombay Natural History Society. They asked the question from padmaawards.gov.in. They may ask a question, for example, Article 49 is there, spoliation and disfigurement, saving the national monument. So they may ask from Archaeological Survey of India website. So those things that are in news, at least once go through, if there is an official website, go through about us and all. First, it's another important thing related to this is when there is a difference between issue and what you call what is relevant from UPSC perspective. For example, if there is unfortunately, God forbid, if there is a violence in northeast on Jammu and Kashmir, that particular incident UPSC will never ask that when did that incident happen, but the issue of security is important. If there is an issue related to women, so a particular issue happened, we all were pained in RG Kar hospital, we all were pained, but that raises the question on women. So students, while reading the newspaper, they read, there is too much of fact. Initially, when many years, 15, 18 years back, when I started reading newspaper, so I thought it takes ample of time, but now when I see it hardly takes 40 minutes. So must know what has to be eliminated. The statements coming from political leaders, any particular incidents of violence, any particular incident happened or any political party, these are of no relevance. Issues are important, women related issues, the parliamentary privileges, environment related issues, economic, for example, a particular share went down or there is a stock market turbulence. So what Nifty went, but overall the scenario. So you must always isolate the issues from the incident. UPSC is not going to ask. They are not going to ask which is the capital of Ukraine, or they are not going to ask which is the capital of a particular country. Issues they must, just say recently the issue happened related to US and so issues must be understood. So I feel that internet should be used very judiciously. Do not, one newspaper is enough. You can keep a track on the second newspaper. Third, isolate the incidents from the issues. Incidents which are factual in nature are not important. Issues definitely related to UPSC. One last thing, you must develop the aptitude of the UPSC is recruiting you as a civil servant. So they don't, if they only want to test your memory, then they will be recruiting someone at the group C or group B level. So here they are testing your understanding and how you will react to original situations. So I think the newspaper should be read from the perspective of the demand of examination, which is understanding the complex issues that are arising. And of course, interdisciplinary approach is something which is important. I think these things are.
So if I have to summarize, sir, I think the big challenge for the aspirant here is that they don't know what's important. So the first learning before they start preparing current affairs is they need to understand where it is important, what kind of things are important, because then only their whole exercise of all the time which they're going to be putting in, that becomes useful. And for the digital sources, I think they need to be smarter, because that can in a way go into that whole endless line where there will be no stopping them, you know, one page after the other they can go into.
Yeah, ma'am. There is one more challenge. Many of the websites I go through, so I find that the information is factually incorrect. So anybody who, I'm not accusing, but anybody who is naive, not having an understanding, also puts up a literature over internet. So I think one has to be very diligent from where you are taking that as Sir rightly said about the primary source, that is something which is important.
Yes. Now if we can go further and help our aspirants, because current affairs is not something where they can, you know, just sit a few days and do, they have to do it continuously. So Rajesh Sir, if you'll just help our aspirants to understand how systematically they're supposed to put in current affairs in their daily routine.
See, doing current affairs consistently on daily is very, very important. So because on an average, most of the times the students pick up this annual compilations, quarterly compilations, and they just read that. And many times they just complain that they are not able to understand, they are not able to retain. That's because they are not doing it regularly. It's very much necessary that they have to do it regularly. So if you ask me, first thing, everyone should read newspaper. There is no alternative to newspaper. So either it is Hindu or Indian Express, two most widely read newspapers for UPSC. So as Sir was saying, there is no debate in between. So whatever you are comfortable, you can go with that. Ideally, it should not take more than an hour, 1.5 hours, like 1 hour 30 minutes maximum, and one should make a concise notes. Okay, so ideally they should make a concise notes, but it is not compulsory. It is not compulsory. So I'll tell you what is the alternative. Somebody cannot do that. So basic idea is whatever you have read, you should be able to comprehend that issue and make a small notes. And on daily basis, it will be good if you can revise it as well as practice some questions. So there are a lot of sources for that. For example, even in Vision IAS also we provide daily current affairs based, so the MCQs
News
for practice.
Today is also
Yes,
there. Yeah.
yes. So using that you can practice and revise. And this is on daily basis. And other than that, monthly consolidation is very much required here. So if at all you have made your own notes, so it's well and good. You can revise that, and if not, you get the monthly compilation. For example, Vision IAS monthly current affairs is there, where you get the comprehensive comparison of the entire month's current affairs. So going through that will be very much helpful for any aspirant, because it gives the entire month's the average current affairs. And once that is done at regular intervals, let's say like I have studied the January one, so now going through the February and March, then I go back to the January again. At regular intervals, I have to go through that. Most importantly, whenever I am reading through the various different subjects, okay, for example, economics or environment or polity for that matter, whenever a particular news comes up through that part, okay, so let's say I am talking about environment, okay, so I am going through the climate change and the related issues, and if at all I had read in current affairs related to the recent COP which was held under UNFCCC, so I should go back there and go through that. I should be able to connect these two. So that is one of the best way of integrating current affairs with the static part. And in the end, if at all one has thoroughly done this exercise for the entire years, so revising this would be sufficient. If one feels there are some gaps and lacunas and they could have done it better, in that case they can also then refer to the annual compilations like PT 365 or Mains 365.
So it can be a very well sought after step-by-step plan, right? Like they start with the daily newspaper, either of
Yes,
those
yes.
newspapers. If they want, they can take some help from the daily compilation.
Yes.
And once they have studied 1 month's newspaper, then they can pick up that consolidated
Yes,
right
yes,
magazine.
yes.
And if they have their notes, I think probably that can also be integrated, because the magazine would have a lot of information and probably it'll be the same thing
Yes,
which
yes, yes.
they would have also. So they can have like one source. And then after the whole year, that revision could be done through like what we have PD 365 and mains 365.
Here, one more aspect I would like to add. So, the editorials which they get in the newspaper. So, that is, of course, there is no alternative for that. So, somebody can make a concise version of that editorial. That can be easily done. But one has to read that editorial and to develop that the capacity to comprehend a issue holistically, and so develop his own ideas. So that you cannot replace. That comes only through reading editorial articles, which is must according to me.
Because there will be many people writing on the same issue, right? Like
Yes,
Sir is talking
yes.
about delimitation. So somebody will write against it, somebody will write for it. So if you've read it or in 5 articles over 5 days, then that's how like we always tell everybody, develop critical thinking. So that's how that happens,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Talking a little bit more about opinion and the mains part, Sunil Sir, if you can talk specifically about integrating current affairs for writing in the mains exam. Like when you're doing answer writing, so the aspirant has some idea of a static part. How does he start adding current affairs into those answers?
In fact, this is again because end of the day, what you're going to write is where you're going to score. No matter how much you're knowing, how much you show up in the paper, that is important. And for that, first and foremost important is that you should be knowing the syllabus thoroughly. Because once there's a very famous saying, now what your mind does not know, your eyes cannot see. So once you know it, that this is in my syllabus, in newspaper you will eventually knowing, okay, this is significant, and I should be taking care of it. Now, as a question is that how they can get benefited in answer writing, I'll divide into 3-4 parts. The first part is that there are facts and data in the newspaper that can be utilized. So let's say in your routine classes, in your notes, you have read about several indices, several reports. Now, whenever these reports are coming in the newspaper, you should take a quick note on it. And that's why I was saying in the resources, very important resources explained, because explained does it well in both the newspapers, be it Hindu or Indian Express. So they provide you necessary data, and it has been found most of the students who are in top 50, 100, that they always start their answer with the data, because that gives a precision. If I say that, let's say I'm saying that I'm talking something about health, and I say life expectancy of India has gone down after COVID as per UNDP report, it says a lot. It says a lot. Now I'm saying something with the data. So the first usage is that you should know the data, but again, understand this practical limitation that you cannot mug up all the data. So what you should be understanding, that the key data of things which are often highlighted. In fact, I would like to add, as we are talking about a newspaper here, there is one thing it's called inverted pyramid of writing. What is inverted pyramid of writing? In media, what they do, the most important things are written first. The very first paragraph is actually synopsis of everything, and then they detail it, and then trivial issues are written in the last. The idea is because more than 90% of the people read only one paragraph. This is the
Yes, exactly.
official report,
Yes.
that more than 90% people are in hurry and they read only one paragraph. So inverted pyramid of writing is keeping this in mind. This is editor's job. So whenever news is presented by the reporter, the editor do it, that they make sure that the first paragraph is something which is synopsis of the entire with the key data. Same goes with PIB reports. All the press releases, the first paragraph tells everything about what they are going to follow in detail. So this is where you get the key data. Obviously, you cannot remember how much of GDP at the real and nominal, but the growth rate is something we should remember. So considering all these things, first thing first, you should know the data, and that is where your classroom studies and notes would have helped you. So at least, in fact, next time when you're observing any, those who are listening here can do it also at home, that if you see any PIB release, whatever the key data, they are given in black and bold. Government does it proactively. so that you can identify this is the key data. Those data should be in your answers. It's very good to start with, and if you're talking about something futuristic, this is very good to end with. So that's one thing.
This should be like a target
This is
or
how
something.
it should be. This is how what should be achieving. This is what we thought and we could not achieve, and that kind of thing. Second part of is that you should be in the newspaper. You get some very good practices, global best practices. So let's say if you remember, this is even I got goosebumps when I heard this, that in Baramulla in Jammu Kashmir they've introduced one thing called mother's waiting ward. So what is there, because it's a difficult terrain and in the 9th month maybe mothers cannot move there, so they had made a place where mother can stay and nutritional care is provided. Now this is wonderful practice. Even in Ladakh, we got now tap at -10 degree. Another wonderful practice which has been achieved by. So you're saying something about water resource. You should be talking about these best practices. Similarly, you have seen that how things are happening in Norwegian countries. You might have seen something happening like recently we got some of the Asian countries has come up with very good model of labor intensive healthcare. Now, so that can be added. So this is where another thing you get from the newspaper. So first was the data. Second was that whatever best practices are. Now you should read this in the news from the newspaper, and immediately you should add it to wherever your let's say notes are, so that when you're revising this best practices also comes in your mind. And trust your brain. If you have quoted it that way, whenever you see the question, this will come in your mind that this is what is the best practice, because this is where you can tell what needs to be done. Anywhere, in any subject, it could be done. So environmental best practices, if you see that various things are happening. Recently, we gone, say, Jal Sanrakshak has come up. So good practices anywhere happening. So this is something which you should be adding. That's second thing. Third thing which you can use from newspaper, as I told you, that there could be certain indices, reports, which particularly in the subject like environment, economics,
Paper
for that
3
matter, in
overall.
international relationship also, this current affairs, science and technology, internal security. This is where, in fact, in internal security, we got very good exercise recently done by BSF, just to what is called bring Kashmiri youths into the mainframe. You can use these kind of things also while writing the answers. Various reports, IUCN report as you're talking about, there could be reports on, you can say, whatever has been the climate actions. I was reading one of the articles that how climate change has created inflation because of Panama Canal got dried up. Now this is a very good example of how climate change got its monetary impact also. So these kind of things you should be adding, and enjoy it. Again, I'll say, enjoy it. Your brain is capable to recall when needed. This is the best part. Don't get scared. Ki, what if I forget in the examination? Go with, again, I'll say that perfection is a disease. Have working order. Don't try to hit every ball. So, if you enjoy it, you can recall in the examination hall. May not be each and every case, but when needed, trust me, your brain will help you to map it. So first I said there should be fact and data. Second I said best practices and reports. Third thing which you also can use from is, as Sir was talking about, editorial. Additionally, we also should be using newspaper for one more purpose, and that is key. There are some very good quotes, as as is mentioned. So those quotes should be kept aside and could be utilized while answering question in paper 4. So in paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, use facts, use reports, because they will give precision and authenticity to your answers. And get what is called best practices. That could be very useful, especially in paper 1 and the questions asked in paper 3. And paper 4, you get what is called some very good articles coming here and there, very good quotes that can be utilized even for in essay paper also, because it is standard practice that you start with a very good quote when it comes to essay paper. Best practices can be added there in essay paper. So that's how, but again, all these things stop at one point. They get converged at one point, and that point is enjoy the information. Because it's going to be a journey, and if you are trying to mug it up and that too, you have to do it from the examination sake, no. Just read it for sake of being vigilant, and eventually you think it is coming when needed. So that is how they can use when it comes to newspaper.
Yeah, that's actually makes a lot of sense, that it has to be taken gradually. The whole preparation, and I think incorporation into answers or solving prelims questions based on current affairs, that will also happen over a period of time. So I would like Amil Sir that you can please explain this especially to our new aspirants, like for people who are just starting their preparation, they've not studied a lot of static part also. So how do they go about this whole thing?
This I see in the class also. Those who start, because for example, we cannot teach everything on day one.
Yeah.
So we gradually do things. So somehow something gets completed in February if the batches. So that remains a challenge.
Yeah.
So those students who have just started, I would say first that they are not required to go too deep into the newspaper.
Yes.
Just get into the habit.
Yeah.
But one thing is there. We come up with monthly current affairs where we, for example, we are dealing with 10 schedule. So we give a background,
Yeah.
which background is so lucid and easy that can be understood by any person who has a basic understanding or reading skills and all, understanding skills. So one, just go through the newspaper. For today only, if in the class I was like, many articles have come. So in some batches I've already covered those topics, so they are easily able to. In fact, it is in verbatim what I have discussed in the class.
Yeah.
In some batches I have not gone. So I'm teaching parliament, so I'll be going to judiciary.
Yeah.
So this is a very good question. So for the time being, I don't think they should take newspapers too seriously,
Yeah.
because especially in subjects like economy.
Yeah.
Okay. In polity, if they have a basic background, or in environment they understand economy, if they don't understand the concept.
Yeah.
So initially when you have just started, just read the newspaper. Gradually, when the topics would be covered, you would be in a better position.
Yeah.
But don't miss the monthly current affairs, because we have recorded lectures also.
Yeah.
And they can take those recorded lectures where we give a very basic, for example, if you are talking about, say, fundamental rights. So we will say what is a right. We will say where it has been placed in Indian Constitution. So I think watching lectures would help. In general, for those students who are watching from diverse geographical locations, they can just initially avoid too much into newspaper initially.
Yeah.
Okay, first thing. Second, those who have already appeared for prelims or mains, mainly, ma'am, exam is a that answer script is a communication between examinee and the examiner.
Yeah.
They both don't know their identity.
Yeah.
Each other, they both don't know each other. So
Yeah.
I think very, very effective communication between the examiners. So those students who are already preparing for years, one challenge which I see, in fact, in quick revision module or in fast track course, sometimes I see those students who have already appeared for 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
So yesterday only I was talking to a student. So this is the problem, because going through the same piece of information again and again.
Yeah.
So what they can do, one, they should be in, I expect them to be in a better position to delineate that piece of information which is not important.
Yeah.
So for them, I would say they should be more proactive about the newspaper, because they already know the concept. One small mistake I would like to point out. For example, collegium. There is too much talk about collegium.
Yes, sir.
So there are 50 articles on collegium. So on an average, Hindu 1200 words are there. So 6,000, 60,000 or something words they will read. If UPSC asks a question, that would be of 250 words.
Yeah.
So too much information on, for example, we are already covering collegium in the class.
Yeah.
Current affairs also will provide background. Now they have read 50 articles on collegium in 2 years. On an average 1200 words. 60,000 words you read, you will write 150 words if they ask a question.
Yeah.
So those topics which are repeatedly coming, I don't think giving too much stress where you already have information. As Sir rightly said, for example, in collegium, if they give a particular information, that recently I was reading that hardly 8 to 10 judges who have been elevated from the bar, and no one has been elevated from distinguished jurist criteria. So if you get a fact of such which will make your answer unique, otherwise those repetitive topics, no need to give too much stress upon, I think, this.
So I think, sir, this repetition part, for a new aspirant, maybe we can look at it in a way that as he reads the same topic again and again, he'll get to that point where he understands, right? Because in the beginning, we are saying that he should not go very deep. He should just maybe get an overview. But if he keeps on reading the same thing in a few months, he'll get a better idea. Plus, once he covers static, of course, he'll be in a better position.
Yes, ma'am. NCRT, I think, ma'am, for most of the environment, you see polity, Indian Constitution at work, political theory, democratic politics, part 1, part 2. Most of the NCRT give you an understanding where you will be able to understand. If, for example, PDT Acharya writes an article on the functioning of Lok Sabha or delimitation, that is something which he will not be able to understand. So I think he can wait for a while.
A few articles are delight to read. You should be reading them for the reading sake only.
Sir, it's a lot about all the joy, no?
No, that's needed, because obviously when this is the journey, if you're not enjoying it, if you're not reading it with that, you can say that energy, so what will happen? No matter what you are reading, you will forget. So you should get part of it. You should be knowing it for knowing sake, that's it. And your brain is capable to recall it when needed. In fact, that's the reason why most of the time we recall which is not needed and we forget what we are supposed to. Because what happens, we are scared. Ki, what if I forget? Arey, what if you forget? So it will come some of the other way here or there. And one more thing I would like to add, that most of the time people think, what if I miss today's newspaper? It's not a crime. It's not a crime if you missed any day's newspaper. Don't chase it here and there unnecessary. That now people are clearing backlogs. Don't do that.
Yeah, sir, we have students coming to the class
so-
with 7 newspapers. So Monday to Sunday, the whole
So
newspaper
don't
is in
have
their
that
bag.
kind of tendency. Explain section is what I must say. You should be acknowledging properly, because most of the time, most of the things, as Amil Sir was saying, most of the things are explained in the explain section. The terminology, what has been the background, what are the major decisions, for that matter in polity, what has been the major cases. So all that thing is wonderfully written in explain section these days. And this is what I was highlighting on this digital current affairs 2.0, because we are acknowledging all those explained sections in that 2.0. So if you go on generative AI and you just search for that topic, you will get that link also. So let's say you have missed any of that resource, you can go and read it firstly from the resource. Okay, this is what originally was given in the section. So considering all these kind of things, enjoy it. And explain section, I personally believe, in fact, if you have done explain section thoroughly, 365 days means some odd 400 explains, nothing more than that. So 400, 450 at the best. 450 articles are doable. And that is what you must not be skipping. And rest of the things, as sir was saying, that there are things repetitive, you can skip it, and that is what just by looking at the first paragraph, you will know. And a few writers are also worth reading, that how to write.
Yeah,
Like
for
my
for
pers-
essay,
हाँ,
for essay
like my
you can
personal
use-
favorite is Ashok Gulati. For some other reason, the way he explains the thing, his way of writing is something that you also should inherit. That certain terminologies, your own lexicon, develop your own lexicon. Each of us have our own, so but that lexicon should be yours, and you should be again using them repetitively. That is what could be one other thing you can learn from the newspaper.
One thing is there that cashew nuts cannot replace main course
True,
meal.
agreed.
Okay.
So main course meal is newspaper.
Newspaper.
Any alternative source is cashew nut.
Yeah.
That is something which so what newspaper cannot be. And one more thing, ma'am, with respect to newspaper change you as a human. You won't even realize,
Yeah.
because you're reading the topic, your vocabulary will increase, your way of seeing things would change. So it is not about, as sir very rightly, not about facts only.
Yeah.
You will develop if I see my personality, whatever I know, it has been a large part of contribution has come from newspaper.
Exactly.
It changes you completely, gives you a very broad horizon. So I think newspaper, this as a summary, what we can see,
Yeah.
that newspaper is something which serves as an oxygen for this current affairs. Any alternate source is a cashew nut,
Yeah.
which can serve as a what you call revitalizing or supplement.
Yes.
And also, why the enjoying part is very important. Only then you will make it as a routine. If you start to see it as
Because
some
it's
kind
very
of
long.
yes, you start to see it as some kind of burden. अरे आज तो करना ही है मुझे. तो then after few days you will lose interest.
Rajesh Sir, please also highlight this for those people, because current affairs is very extensive, and rightly we have said that you have to do it for a very long time. Your whole preparation, every day you have to prepare current affairs. So there are aspirants which might be starting their preparation a little late, or we have people who are working professionals who have this very big limitation of time. So is there anything which you would like to recommend to them?
So many students actually face this issue. Even those who are just going to their college and they are in the
Yeah.
final years,
Yes, yes.
and they are simultaneously preparing. So for those who are having some kind of shortage of time, so I would still recommend not to skip the newspaper. Just at least glance through it.
Yeah.
Okay, just glance through the main events. Even if you're not able to read through the entire article, just at least just develop the idea. That keeps you in touch with the main events which are happening. And in addition to that, you can use any of these daily, so summary kind of, so compilation which comes. For example, the news today of Vision IAS, or even you can use the digital current affairs. Okay, there's so many tools over there which helps you in making the notes and tools, and then asking the generative AI the questions, Vision Intelligence. That will help you in, so covering this in a very short period of time. But having less time should not be an excuse to skip the newspaper or current affairs. You should do it. It's daily part of the routine. So you can use this technology and other aids to the help. And second, practicing the question is one thing which can be very much helpful. So practicing current affairs related questions, that will help in revising and recollecting the important information. So other than that, the annual compilations will definitely come out. Okay, so for those who are going to prepare for prelims, we have PT 365, which will like gives you the summary of entire the year's information of current affairs in one simple document. Okay, so and then for mains we have mains 365 like this. So, but I strongly suggest please go through only some authentic in a source of information here, because lot of channels are there, and then information is there in the internet, and people find many of them to be attractive, but it may not be authentic. One more thing I'd like to add. So there are some audio video channels, authentic sources. So for example, the Rajya Sabha debates or some special so discussions, so people can use that. So let's say a working professional traveling through metro or while going through car, you can go through those.
Even for that matter, sir, all India radio discussions are still very good, useful.
Yes,
Because they come directly from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
Most of the time, those who have drafted the things,
The questions.
they are and the questions. So that is something which, in fact, and now it is available on their archives also.
Yes.
So you can.
And also they're very precise and to the point.
To the point.
And because any source which is, I think, a government source, we definitely feel that there can be questions. That's why we have been suggesting that you really go through the government websites, because whatever the government is doing, they're likely to ask some question somewhere linked to that. So I think with that point, it's been a very fruitful discussion, and I hope we've been able to help all kind of aspirants. So current affairs, I'm sure you have this idea that now that how important, how critical, how indispensable it is. And whatever stage of your preparation you are at, you must know current affairs is something you cannot miss. And if you have any further queries or doubts regarding it, please drop a comment, or you can call us on our student care number. I wish all of you all the best.